Have you ever found a connection with someone you least expected? Someone who seemed to come from an entirely different world? For Allie, a 60-year-old woman with a peaceful, predictable life centered around her twice-weekly swimming sessions, such an idea felt far-fetched until she met Lon. He was a young swimming instructor at her local pool, full of energy and charm. What began as casual, innocent conversations soon evolved into something more profound, something that neither of them had anticipated. Allie was a creature of habit. After years of raising children, maintaining a household, and working tirelessly, she had settled into a comforting rhythm. Twice a week, she packed her swimming bag with precision and walked to the pool. There, she found solace in the water, a sanctuary where her mind quieted and her body moved in a soothing, familiar rhythm. The pool was often quiet during her morning visits. The soft hum of the filtration system and the occasional splash, creating a serene environment that felt like a world apart from her busy past. One day, her routine was interrupted by the arrival of Lon. In his late 20s, tall and athletic, Lon brought a burst of youthful energy to the pool. Allie first noticed him while he was leading a children's swim class. His patience and kindness stood out, but at the time, she thought little of it. Young instructors came and went, their lives barely overlapping with hers. But something shifted during her next visit. After finishing her laps, she found herself curious about the new instructor. She couldn't help but notice the way he seemed completely at ease, effortlessly balancing the chaos of the children's class while maintaining his unshakable calm. There was a sincerity in his demeanor, an unspoken kindness that intrigued her. For someone so young, he carried himself with a sense of quiet confidence that felt grounding. On an impulse, she approached him while he was packing up equipment. "Hi there," she said, a slight hesitation in her voice. "You're the new instructor, right?" Lon looked up, a friendly smile lighting up his face. "That's right," he replied. "You swim here pretty often, don't you?" Allie was taken aback. She hadn't expected him to notice her routine. "Yes, I do," she said, feeling a little self-conscious. "You've got a really smooth stroke," he added, his tone genuinely impressed. "Have you ever thought about joining one of our adult swim classes? I think you'd be great." Allie chuckled softly, shaking her head. "Oh no, I'm not competitive at all. I just swim because it helps me relax." Lon grinned, leaning casually against the pool railing. "I get that. Still, you've got better form than most." "It's impressive." His compliment caught Allie off guard. Her initial reaction was to brush it off, laugh politely, and move on. But something about the way he said it stayed with her. It wasn't just the words, but the way his eyes met hers, steady and unflinching, as if he truly saw her. That evening, as she unpacked her swim bag at home, the echo of his voice lingered in her mind like a melody she couldn't quite place. It had been a long time since anyone had noticed her in that way, and the warmth of his words stayed with her long after she left the pool. Over the following weeks, their conversations became more frequent. Lon would greet her when she arrived, sometimes offering tips on her technique, or even swimming alongside her for a lap or two. Their exchanges moved from lighthearted chats about swimming to more personal topics, and Allie found herself eagerly looking forward to her time at the pool. One evening, after a particularly tiring swim, Allie lingered near the changing rooms. She was drying her hair when Lon appeared. "Hey," he said, leaning against the doorway, his smile softer than usual. "I was hoping to catch you before you left." At first, she thought he might just be passing through, but the way he lingered told her otherwise. His casual stance didn't hide the intensity in his gaze, and for a brief moment, Allie felt exposed. Not in a vulnerable way, but as if all the masks she wore had quietly slipped away. It unsettled her, and yet she couldn't look away. Allie felt her heart quicken. "Oh, what's on your mind?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Lon hesitated, his expression uncharacteristically serious. "I just wanted to talk," he said quietly, his tone filled with an unexpected intensity. There was something unspoken in his gaze, something that made Allie feel both vulnerable and alive in a way she hadn't in years. Before she could respond, Lon reached out, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face. His touch was gentle, yet it sent a wave of warmth through her. "You look beautiful like this," he murmured, almost as if speaking to himself. Allie stood frozen, caught between disbelief and a growing sense of connection. While uncertainty tugged at her thoughts, she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him. Their relationship began to evolve, marked by stolen moments and quiet conversations. The pool, once her personal retreat, became the backdrop for something entirely new, a bond that was both thrilling and unexpected. Though their connection deepened, Allie often wrestled with doubts. Could such a relationship work? What would people think? But Lon never seemed fazed by their age difference or the challenges they might face. "I'm with you because I want to be," he reassured her one evening. "Age doesn't matter. You matter." His words comforted her, at least for a while. Allie allowed herself to be swept up in their unique bond, savoring the joy and excitement he brought into her life. Yet in the quiet moments, she couldn't help but wonder how long their fragile, beautiful connection could last. After that day at the pool, Allie couldn't shake the lingering warmth of Lon's compliment. It had been years since anyone had noticed her in such a way, and the memory of his words stayed with her. Over the following weeks, their brief exchanges became a regular part of her visits. Lon would greet her with a friendly smile, sometimes offering tips on her swimming technique, or even swimming alongside her for a lap or two. Their conversations grew from casual remarks about the water's temperature to deeper, more personal topics. Each meeting left Allie feeling both exhilarated and slightly unsettled by the growing connection. One evening, after a particularly tiring session in the pool, Allie lingered longer than usual in the changing room. She was towel drying her hair when she heard footsteps approaching. She was sitting on the bench, lost in thought, as the sound of his approaching footsteps broke through her reverie. This time, there was no casual banter or playful grin. Lon's expression was different, more serious, almost hesitant, as if he had been replaying this moment in his mind before finally deciding to act. To her surprise, it was Lon. He leaned casually against the doorway, his smile softer than usual, carrying an energy she hadn't seen before. "Hey," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "I was hoping I'd catch you before you left." Allie felt her heart quicken. "Oh, what's on your mind?" she asked, keeping her tone light, though an undeniable tension hung in the air. Lon hesitated for a moment, his gaze holding hers. "I don't know," he replied with a faint smile, stepping a little closer. "I just wanted to talk." There was something different about his presence, gentler, more deliberate. Allie felt a twinge of uncertainty. What was he really trying to say? Before she could think too much, Lon reached out, brushing a strand of damp hair away from her face. His touch was soft, almost tentative, but it sent a ripple of unexpected warmth through her. "You look beautiful," he murmured, his voice so quiet it felt as though he was speaking more to himself than to her. Allie froze, a mix of emotions rushing through her, surprise, vulnerability, and an undeniable pull toward him. This wasn't just a friendly interaction anymore. The air between them had shifted into something uncharted, something neither of them could ignore. Lon moved closer, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. The simple gesture was enough to leave her breathless, her mind racing with conflicting thoughts. She could stop this, should stop this, but she didn't. There was something magnetic about the moment, something she hadn't felt in years. "Lon," she began, her voice unsteady. But before she could finish, he gently leaned in, closing the distance between them. Allie didn't move at first, her thoughts swirling. Yet, against all reason, she found herself drawn to him. Slowly, she let the tension fade, her breath evening out as she surrendered to the moment. In the quiet of the changing room, the world outside faded into insignificance, leaving only the two of them in this fragile space. Allie wasn't even sure what she had been about to say, but Lon didn't wait for her to finish. Instead, he leaned in, his lips brushing against hers in a tentative, testing way. She froze for a moment, her mind racing with a whirlwind of thoughts. But then, to her own surprise, she found herself kissing him back. It was gentle, unhurried, and profoundly intimate. In that quiet, secluded space, the world beyond the changing room seemed to vanish. That single moment shifted everything between them. From then on, their connection deepened, becoming something far more personal than casual conversations by the pool. They began spending time together, both during and outside her swim sessions. Sometimes, after her laps, they would steal brief moments in the changing room, exchanges of whispered words and fleeting touches that felt like their own little secret. It felt surreal to Allie, being with someone so much younger, someone who made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. But as their relationship grew, so did her doubts. What did Lon truly see in her? She was a woman more than twice his age, a fact she couldn't ignore. Was it fair to him, or to herself? As much as she cherished the way he made her feel, cherished and desired, a quiet fear lingered in her heart. She worried that the reality of their age difference might one day become an insurmountable barrier, unraveling the fragile fantasy they had created. Late at night, she would sit by her bedroom window, staring out at the quiet street below, her thoughts a tangled web of longing and doubt. What was she chasing? A fleeting sense of youth, or something deeper? Each time, her heart and mind warred, the lines between desire and practicality blurring with every memory of his touch. Lon, however, seemed unfazed. He faced her insecurities with patience and kindness, always ready to reassure her. One evening, after a quiet moment together, he gently said, "I'm with you because I want to be. Age doesn't matter to me. You matter to me." His words were like a balm, soothing the doubts that Allie had carried for weeks. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to let go, surrendering to the joy he brought into her life. With Lon, she could set aside the responsibilities that had defined her for decades and feel cared for, something she hadn't realized how deeply she needed. Their time together grew more intense as the weeks passed. The changing room, once a mundane part of her routine, transformed into a space of shared intimacy and quiet connection. The familiar sounds of water dripping from the pool, the echo of their whispered conversations, and the gentle touch of his hand against hers became memories she held close. Allie had never imagined herself in such a situation, much less finding such joy in it. Still, she couldn't quite silence the feeling that this chapter of her life was fleeting. Allie had lived long enough to know that not all wonderful things last forever. But for now, she tried to push those thoughts aside, focusing on the present, the way Lon made her feel alive and seen. One evening, after another of their quiet moments together, Allie leaned back against the cool tile of the changing room, her breathing still unsteady. Lon sat beside her, his expression calm and content. She hesitated, her voice soft as she finally spoke the worry that had been gnawing at her. "I don't know how long we can keep this up," she said, her words tinged with uncertainty. It's not exactly normal, is it?" Lon frowned for a moment, his brow furrowing, but his expression soon softened. He reached out, brushing his fingers gently along her cheek. "Does it have to be normal?" he asked, his voice quiet yet resolute. Allie's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to argue, to tell him that love, especially their kind, didn't exist in a vacuum, that the world had rules, expectations, boundaries. But the way he looked at her, with such unshakable certainty, made her question everything she thought she knew. Perhaps it wasn't about proving their relationship to anyone else, but rather about holding on to the truth of what they had found in each other. "I care about you, Allie. That's all that matters to me." His words gave her comfort, at least for the moment. Allie knew that reality might catch up to them eventually. But for now, she allowed herself to be swept away by the strange, beautiful connection they had found in such an unexpected place. The pool, the water, the changing room, the routine that had once been her sanctuary, now held new meaning, infused with the intensity of their relationship. Allie didn't know what the future held for them, but for the first time in a long while, she was willing to let go and let life surprise her. For now, they continued their delicate dance. Two people from vastly different worlds who had stumbled upon something extraordinary in the quiet spaces of their routines. The pool became the backdrop for a story Allie never thought she'd live, one she was grateful to experience, no matter how long it might last. As she left the pool that evening, the cool night air wrapped around her like a quiet promise. For the first time in years, she felt untethered, not lost, but free, as if the weight of expectations had finally slipped from her shoulders. Whatever the future held, she knew she would carry this chapter with her, a spark of life in a heart that had long forgotten how to burn.